What's going on, everybody? This is Bryson, and I'm coming by to give you a tutorial onto how to use our models to build lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings for your MLB contests. We have a good bit of stuff over here at Sports Charts Analytics, and our job is basically to make things easier for our members. Our job is mostly to try to get a plug and play where you can just use our lineup template and fill out the other positions, or if you want to build your own stacks and build your own lineups away from our lineup template, then we always have our models that you can use that will make things a lot easier. So first, I'm gonna go through my daily process of how I build my lineups based off the models, and pretty much just dive in and show you guys different ways to use our models. So first, what I normally like to do is when our models get posted about 3 or 4 hours before the slate starts, I like to look and see who we are high on compared to what Vegas is high on. Because majority of players, fantasy players, they look at the Vegas team totals, and whoever is over 5 runs or maybe 6 runs, that's who the ownership more than likely is concentrated on. So I like to see if we're high on that team with Vegas or if we're actually under on that team compared to Vegas. Also, this model is good to use for our sports betting as well too. So what I like to do, I come over and I sort the team total differential. It's the very first thing I do. So we don't have a line. On this previous day, we didn't have a line yet for the Braves and Mets. So Vegas hadn't posted their team totals yet, but we have our team totals as of right now. So what I do, I like to sort the team totals and see who we're high on compared to Vegas. All right, so this day we were high on the Marlins and the Reds. We was a full run over compared to Vegas for Miami, and we was almost a full run over compared to Vegas with the Reds. So for your sports bettors, this is what I would normally do. I would normally say, all right, let me see what odds we have for Miami over 4.5 runs. Or let's see what odds we have for Cincinnati over 4.5 runs. And that would be a good way to center your bets as well too, because you can always find your edge when it comes to Vegas, because Vegas typically is a lot lower or a lot higher than we are on teams. So for fantasy purposes, I would say, all right, well, hey, maybe the Marlins, the Reds, Diamondbacks, Boston, Colorado, maybe some good stacks that I would want to target. And I would come over. Let's see, all right? Let's see who's projected to hit the most home runs for the day. It's the Cubs, okay? It was almost 2 home runs for that team, projected for 2 home runs, all right? Reds, they was projected for 2. Miami, they was projected for 2. Then you got Boston. So this is a good way, another good way to look and see what teams that we are high on compared to Vegas. Also, you can look at your over and under differential. This is more safe for your sports bettors right here. So Miami, Vegas had them opening up at 9 runs. We had them projected for almost a little over 10 runs. So I was a point higher, 1.34 points higher than what Vegas would project. So this right here, Miami and Baltimore, my bad. This was a pretty good game to bet the over on. Same thing with the Cubs and also the Padres. And you can also look at it to see who we're under on. Rays and Yankees. Pretty much neck and neck. So I wouldn't bet that if I was betting today. Phillies and Nationals. It was almost a 0.5 point under than what Vegas projected. So this would be a good bet as well too. Nationals and Phillies under, let's say, 11.5 runs. Get a little bit of cushion. See what odds are on that. So this is how I use our team model. It's great for fantasy and great for sports bets as well too. But now let's dive in a little more. Let's look into fantasy wise. Let's start with our team stacks. So what you would do, you would come here and go to MLB team stacks. But I already have it pulled up on my screen, so I'm gonna go straight to it. So you would sort. Okay, so this is saying we're high on the Cubs, the Reds, the Marlins, and Toronto. These are pretty good stacks. Minnesota, Philly, Atlanta. Some good stats that we can look at into putting in our lineups for both FanDuel and DraftKings. See, the Reds was the highest rating, Chicago, then Miami. So it's a pretty good way to start to see what teams that you will possibly want to stack. This is what I like to do as far as our player position model. So I will come here, I'll go click on model. So this is our player position model. Right now they're in alphabetical order because it just got uploaded. Well, let's come here and let's sort the short rate. So you click on it. All right, so the highest rated batter today is Adam Duvall. Then you have Ohtani, Starling Marte, Guerrero, Soto. So I like to look and see who we're high on individual bats first to kind of get an idea of where I want to target my one-offs on the slate. If I'm building a 4-3-1 on FanDuel or a 5-2-1 on DraftKings, this is where I would look to get my one-offs if the salaries fits. So you can sort by position for DK and FanDuel, and you can sort by price range for DraftKings and FanDuel. What I also like to do is ISO. ISO is a good way to get upside. It's a good way to find upside from your position players. So typically, I would target an ISO over 200. Look for people that's over 200 is where I would target for the ISO. And for those of you that don't know what ISO is the isolated power. So this is pretty much your extra base hits, your doubles, your triples, and your home runs are pretty much all factored into this number right here, this metric. So this is basically the projected ISO for today's slate. So Duvall led the way for ISO, individual ISO for the outfield. Well, actually the whole slate, actually. Duvall had the highest ISO. Next, it was Gallo, Ohtani, Tatis, Chris Bryant, Contreras, and Rizzo. So let's look back at this slate to match up and see how the guys did. I think Duvall went 0 for 5, 0 for 4. So this happens in baseball. It means baseball is a high variance sport. A lot of times that's going to happen. You mean even Mike Trout can go 0 for 4. Ronald Acuna can go 0 for 4. It's possible. It's going to happen at times. But let's look at some of these other guys. Joey Gallo, he hit a home run. Ohtani, he hit a home run. Tatis, he hit a home run. Chris Bryant, he hit a home run. I don't think Wilson Contreras hit a home run. Rizzo, he hit a home run. Bryce Harper, he hit an inside the park home run. Soto, I think he hit a 3-run home run. Freddie Freeman, I don't know exactly what he did. Hoskins, he hit a home run. Winker hit a home run. Suarez, you get where I'm going at? So this is just an isolated power. This is great to use for one-offs and also filling in your stacks. So say, for instance, if you wanted to stack, let's say, the Cubs. What I normally do, I go to team, type in CHC, abbreviation for the Cubs, and I sort by short ratings first. I do that because our short rating is a combined metric that we use over 100 metrics, but we combine them together to get us an overall score. So for the team, on his team itself for the Cubs, Rizzo had the highest short rating. So I would, if possible, I would start with him and build my lineups around these other guys targeting the short rating. That's one way you can build. Also, if you're looking for GPP and GPPs and these high prize tournaments where top payouts is real heavy, I would look at the ISO. I would build my lineups off of ISO. So what would happen is I would start with Chris Bryant, Contreras, Rizzo, and start filling in from guys here. So on FanDuel, where you can build a 4-man stack, I would do 4 of these guys, 4 maybe the top 5, or everybody except, let me see, maybe Nico. On FanDuel, on DraftKings, where you can build a 5-man stack, I will look to try to target 5 guys from this team that has a high ISO over 200. Now for your WOBA is your weighted on base average. That's for more say like your singles, your walks, stuff like that. Those guys are pretty much have a high metric to at least get you some type of points. This is more say for your cash games, give you like a high floor. Our model is more say centered around tournaments and GPPs. That's mostly what we try to push out here at Sports Charts Analytics. So I would more say center my lineups around short rating and ISO. And then the same thing for the pitcher model, which you would go right here. First thing I would do, I would sort the short rating and see who we're high on. So on this day, we was high on Medea. He had a decent game. He would have had to win if the Twins didn't blow it in the top of the 9th. Okay, he was our highest short rating. Pretty good price range on both. Lance, he was next. He was the highest priced pitcher on both sites. But mind you, if you was playing one pitcher sites, I would have centered my lineups around Medea, Martin, or Paddock. And I say this because Paddock and Martin, even though their short rating is not the same as McCullers, are less than McCullers actually. Their value is actually a lot higher than McCullers because you're only losing, I say, less than a half a point here in short rating between these two. And then also with Paddock, you're losing a little over 2 points for short rating, but salary-wise, he's almost $5,000 cheaper than McCullers. So for my player pool that day, I would have centered around Medea, Morton, Paddock. I still would have played Lance if you're making over 20 lineups. I still would have played Lance. But on my main lineups, I would have centered my lineups around Medea, Martin, and Paddock. Opponent TT is opponent team total. This is basically the projected amount of points that the pitcher's opponent will score for today's slate. I would try to center this around 4, maybe 4.5, no more than 4.5. This is included into the sharps rating as well too, with over 100 more metrics. So I really wouldn't pay too much attention to the opponent team total, but it's there if you want to use it. Basically, I would center mostly around the sharps rating. Because like I said, our job here is to make things easier for our members. We basically just want to do a plug and play. You log onto the site, you see Medea, Morton, Paddock are the high pitchers that we're on, and you go ahead and insert them in your lineups and build your lineups as you would like. And last, I want to show you our lineup template. So you will come here to lineup. This is what we normally post at least 30 to 45 minutes before the slate starts. I typically would center my line. I would recommend to use our lineup template to get you a starting place in your lineups. But if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. This is just what we recommend from us doing our research and us building our lineups throughout the day. And these are the exact players that we're centering our lineups around and who will be in our lineups when the slate locks. So if you say, for instance, if you was following the lineup strictly off what we recommend, you will see that we recommended a Miami, Cincinnati 4-4 stack. So what you would do, you would insert these 6 players into your lineup, And once you insert them, then I would go to the positions player model. Instead of typing in CHC, you would type in CIN, abbreviation for Cincinnati, and you would insert the players into your lineup that would fulfill the lineup for FanDuel and for DraftKings. So say for instance, if you have these three players, I think it was these three players that was listed. So if you can fit Tyler in your lineup, or India in your lineup, or Farmer, that's perfectly fine. These guys, pretty decent shot rating, and their ISO is almost, I think he's close to 200, but everybody else over 200. That's a real good starting place to build your lineups. And you will come here for your Miami, type in MIA. And let's see. I think we had Duvall. Let's see what we had. We had Aguilar, Duvall, and Marte. So Aguilar, Duvall, and then Marte. So if possible, Brian Anderson would be a good guy to fulfill the lineup with for your third baseman. Or you can go shortstop with Miguel or either Diaz. It's a lot of ways that you can build your lineups by just using the short ratings to fulfill your lineups after you look at the lineup template. Or the ISO. Either one is fine. ISO is more of a high risk type of lineup. So if you say, I want to try to get the first prize, I want to try to win the 10K, 15K, or however many top prize is, I would strictly go off the ISO. If you're building for more, say, of your conservative style, double ups, triple ups, single entries, then I would go by your short ratings. But both is viable. A lot of times I build off of ISO, but I have had success building off of the short rating as well too. Both are very viable metrics to use to fulfill the lineup template and to also build your lineups, your own individual lineups. So on this slate, I think the Braves led the slate with 12 runs scored. So let's type in that lineup and see how they showed up. So if I'm not mistaken, Jock Peterson was a late scratch. Amato didn't quite update. It was real late into right before lock. So Jock was not included in the lineup this day. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Ozzie hit a home run. Riley hit 2 home runs. I think Swanson hit 1. And Freddie Freeman had a pretty good day. So on the short rating, these is the, outside of Jock, these would be your top 4 guys to target on FanDuel. And then on DraftKings, where you got to play a catcher, I normally, on my 4 or 5 man stacks, I normally go ahead and put my catcher inside my stack. So say, for instance, if I'm 5 man in Atlanta, I'm going to go ahead and put Stephen Vogt into my lineup and go ahead and have him as part of my 5 man stack. So that would have been Freddie, Ozzie, Riley, Swanson, and Vogt. That's a good 5 man stack. Everybody ISO is over 200. And everybody's short rating is at least over 20. That's a good way to build. If I'm not mistaken, like I said, I think Riley hit 2 home runs that day. And his ISO was pretty much second on the team because Jock was a late scratch. And let's look back at Miami once again for your 5 man stack. Like I said again about your catcher. On DraftKings, when you're building your 4 and 5 man stacks, and like I said, you have to play a catcher, I would include your catcher from your stack. Sandy, he hit a 3-run home run that day. And there's one more team, I think the Rockies. They scored over 10 runs. Let's see how they graded out in our model. So he graded out okay. Not too bad. Not too bad at all, actually. ISO-wise, CJ Cron, Story, McMahon, Matt Adams. I don't think he started that day, but Matt Adams, Charlie Blackmon, Sam Hillard. Those are all guys that could have been used for a 4 or 5 man stack for the Rockies. And if we look back at our model, I don't think the Rockies were too high. They was 50, 56, so not too high. But they definitely was a stackable team. So this is basically just how we build our lineups here at Sports Charts Analytics. And if you have any more questions or any more concerns, we're always in our Discord available. So just let us know. Y'all have a good day.